Great, here we go. Okay, yes. This is not the raccoons under your house, Sunny. All right, my friends, here we go. This is a talk on perspective taking, and it is January 22nd, 2020. How crazy is that? It's 2020. Everybody hear me okay? I'm just gonna, great. All right, so this is how today is gonna go. I'm going to share with you a little bit about perspective taking, and then I'm going to take some question and answers. I'll give you a little guided meditation to give you a taste of the work, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the upcoming online course that I'm teaching if you decide that you want to go further with this work. Super excited to have you all on the call today. Some of you I know well, and many of you are here for the first time. So I want to welcome you. This is a great introduction to me and the work. And I basically have two objectives today. One is to share with you about this work and to orient you. Like, what is the objective of this work in general? It's to orient you towards understanding where you're at in your own development, in your own personal development. So it's a way to help you organize. Some of you are doing spiritual work, then you're in therapy, you go to the gym, you have a business coach, you have a life coach, and somehow the threads may not all be integrating or weaving. And the objective of Selfistry is to give you a framework to do that in, so your increments and your success can be more trackable. The other objective of Selfistry is it's to offer a system of development for people like many of you who are super busy with their lives. So some of you know my story and how I took 10 years out of life in order to practice and to explore and to learn. And the reality of the situation for most of us is that we don't have that luxury. It really was a luxury. It was a huge blessing. And so since I've been out of retreat for the last 16 years, my focus has been about creating a way, a pathway, a system, some tools that are fun and creative and deep and effective, and that can be woven into your busy life as it is. So a lot of it is about prioritizing and scheduling well, but a little goes a long way when it comes to doing the right things, okay? So those are my general objectives for Selfistry, to those of you who are new to this work. And then the objectives for this particular talk. So many of you, as I said, are familiar with this work a little bit and with me. So for you, it's about deepening. For some of you, you've been kind of tiptoeing around, what's she up to? Do I want to do this? So hopefully this will be an invitation to draw you in a little bit closer, okay, safely. And then, of course, my primary objective is to shift your perspective on perspective taking. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I want to welcome you all again, and also welcome those of you who are watching the video afterwards who couldn't be here live. So those of you who are here live, you see there is a chat box at the bottom of the frame. On your computer or on your phone is a little chat. If you have questions as we're going, please feel free to write them in the chat. You can write them to all the panelists or to me privately, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I'll answer those questions after my little presentation. Okay, let me see if that's all the logistics. Any questions before we dive in? We could test the questions in the chat. Okay. Everybody looks like they're in. Wonderful. Oh, to see so many of you. I don't know if you can see who's here, but I can. Okay, here we go. Perspective taking. Ready? Let's start with, I'm gonna grab, okay. my tea mug. I love this tea mug. Tea mug with a message. So imagine this tea mug in the middle of the room and you seeing this tea mug like you are straight on. Now imagine getting 360 different perspectives on this tea mug. Okay, so we're going to go full circle. We're going to keep it two-dimensional and just imagine a circle which is made up of 360 degrees and that you're able to walk into each one of those directions and observe this mug. How will that view or all those views change your experience of this mug compared to just having this one? Or maybe even two, or maybe even 180. What if you actually had all 360-degree views of this mug? Each view a different perspective, a different point of view. What would that give you? Certainly would give you a much more complete experience of this mug, right? So the mug becomes the subject, you're the observer looking at it, and what happens is you actually can deepen your intimacy with the mug. Because intimacy is about, there's a great phrase one of my teachers taught me, that when you break down the word intimacy, some of you may have heard this, it breaks down to into me you see. Into me you see. So intimacy is about a connection. Now granted, this is just a mug, but this is an example. You could be, and I actually am very intimate with this mug. This is my favorite tea mug. I know the way it feels in my hands. I know how to warm it well. I know how much tea to make for it. I know how much honey I like in this size cup. So I have a lot of experience with this cup, and every perspective I take on it deepens my understanding of that object. Okay? So now imagine the mug is a car accident. And you're standing on the corner of a busy street in wherever you're from, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, or even just in your small village, your small town. Imagine you're standing on a corner and you observe a car accident. Now you're going to have one perspective from where you're standing, right? Now imagine if you were able to do that same 360-degree journey around the accident. What do you imagine you will learn? Now, if you were sitting in front of me live, I would have you chime in. So I'm going to chime in for you. You would learn a very broad view of the entire accident from one perspective. This is my favorite example of this as well. Now watch my hands. Looks like they're touching, doesn't it? But if you change your perspective, they're not. So perspective is a tricky thing because every place we move to, we're going to see something slightly different. Our brain's going to want to put it all together, and we'll get to that in a moment. But for now, just feel in your body. How does your experience of an incident, like an accident, change when you get to view it from a different perspective? Now, those of you who are sports fans, when I was growing up, they didn't have cameras that were videotaping whether or not the guy was out at first or whether the touchdown was really a touchdown. The refs called it from their perspective, but the refs didn't always have the perspective that was able to actually see the call clearly. And now we have video playback, so that the calls can be accurate to the wholeness of the event. So clearly, I mean, the title of my talk is Change Your Perspective, Change Your Life. Clearly, this kind of ability to get new perspectives on an incident could change somebody's life. Instead of being out at home plate, it was good. He was safe. And then the World Series happened, and then who knows what happened. And so there's a lot of ways in which our willingness to accept that whatever we're seeing is just from one perspective opens up the field of possibility. So when it comes to an incident like a car accident, we're not just deepening with intimacy with our object, we're actually deepening an intimacy with other humans. And with that comes empathy, sympathy, compassion, when we're actually able to see the whole story and to interact with it by moving around it and being curious, we deepen our capacity for sympathy and empathy. Super cool. Okay, and that's probably pretty obvious to most of us. Now let's take it another level. Not just how can taking multiple perspectives change your life, but how might that skill transform your life? What if, instead of it being a mug that you're looking at, or a car accident, you decided, and I'm gonna go get my little puppet now for this. This is Rosie. Hi, everybody. What if you were able to take yourself, and Rosie's going to represent you right now, put you in the middle of the room, and you were able, let me put my little mic back on so I don't lose you. What if you were able to put yourself in the middle of the room and then get perspective on yourself? Okay, just sit with that. Just sit with that for a moment. Okay, imagine you're Rosie in the center and you're Rosie walking around yourself and observing yourself. Okay, this is a bit of a jump, right? It's a little bit of a magical, or see if I can find a place for her to rest where you can still see her. She's in my lap, but you can just see her little fuzzy ponytails. So the invitation here is to get outside of yourself and see yourself. All right, let's stop here for a moment and really, really consider this, because this is something that philosophers and mystics, it's a quandary we've been in for eons, which is we can never actually see ourselves. Right? We can never actually get out of ourselves and see ourselves. Now we have mirrors. This camera is now, I'm actually looking at myself talking to you. So I can see myself, but I can never really get outside of myself and observe myself. But what we're talking about here is developing a skill where you actually can do that to the degree that it can transform your notion or experience of selfhood, which means you're transforming who you are. All right, let me unpack that a little bit. Let me give you an example, okay? So here you are in the middle, and what you're doing is you're expanding your awareness to get outside of yourself, to look back in yourself. And we'll talk about in a moment one way of doing that, which is through meditation, and I'll give you a little experience of it. But right now, if you can, here I can draw you a little picture. Hang on, sharing my screen with you. Here we go. Okay, so you put yourself in the middle here. And then what you do is you learn to bring yourself outside of yourself and traverse all the way around yourself. Now, if you're only looking at your physical self, it's probably super helpful for when, you're buying outfits or wanting to get dressed for a party, which is why those, 3 paneled mirrors are so helpful in clothing stores, because you can actually turn and see the back of yourself. Mirrors have been super helpful for seeing ourselves physically, but not necessarily our interior. So what we're going to learn how to do is actually see ourselves, our interior, okay? Not just our exterior. And what we want to do is understand when we're looking at our interior, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at thoughts. We're looking at feelings. We're looking at beliefs. We're looking at desires. We're looking at habits. We're looking at, what else are we looking at? We're looking at stories, you could call them. We're looking at our genetics, our genetic expression, right? Interiorly. What else are we looking at? We're looking at our unconsciousness. You get the picture. Like our interior is super, I mean, it's filled, right? It's filled with stuff, okay? So what we're trying to do is, not what we're trying to do, what we're going to do is step outside of ourselves and view all of this interior. Now, here's the thing. When we do this, how do I want to say this? When we do this, it's super important. I'm going to give you an example in a moment. It's super important that we really develop the self that is observing. Okay, let me tell you why. I'm going to give you an example. A few weeks ago, I got a call from a young woman, let's call her Ellen, right? So Ellen has been married for, I think, 14 or 15 years. She has 2 teenage children, and about 2 years ago, things started going awry in her marriage. And she tried to work it out with her husband, and they went to therapy, but it wasn't quite working. And somehow in the process of that, she went online and she started looking for something else. So fast forward to now, the something else actually manifested, and now she's torn between the husband who's saying he does want to work on the marriage and himself, whether he really does or not is obviously we need to take a 360 look at him, right? And the guy, the new guy, who's offering all these promises of a fulfilling life in the future. And then there's the kids, and then there's all sorts of other factors involved. So what I'm inviting Ellen to do is to get outside of herself, to see these desires in her, the desire to be married, the desire to stay with her husband, the desire to be a good mother, and the desire to be free, the desire to have a new sexual experience, the desire, all of these live inside of her. And what we do in Selfistry is we give each one of those desires their own storyline and their own thread and their own sense of selfhood. So what I was saying to her is, oh, there's an Ellen who loves her husband and wants to stay married. Oh, and then there's the Ellen who wants to leave her husband because he's a jerk. Oh, then there's the Ellen who has compassion for her husband, who doesn't know if she wants to leave or stay because he's a good guy and he's kind of trying. And oh, then there's Ellen who's raising these 2 teenagers, and her parents got divorced when she was a kid, and she really doesn't want to do that to her kids, but she also wants to model for them what it means to stand for what you want and have that freedom. And she, you know, there's an Ellen that feels like she deserves the kind of attention this new guy is giving her. So she's a mess. She's a mess. And here's what she's doing in her messness. She's ping-ponging back and forth from, should I stay? Should I go? So what she's doing is, should I stay? Yes, I should stay. I want to stay. Oh my God, I want to go. I want to go. She has no objectivity. She has no objectivity. She has moments where she can pop out, but really the only places she's popping is between one and the other. So take a moment and see if you can call up an example in your own life of when this has happened, a decision that you can't get objective about, especially because it's so emotionally charged, and you're just ping-ponging back and forth. I want this, no, I want this. Oh, I can't do this because then I'll lose this. Oh, I can't do this because then I'll lose this, and you're paralyzed. And those of you who know my story also know that that kind of conundrum was the beginning of my exploration and my journey, when I was having to make the decision between having a child with a man that I didn't love and having another abortion, and that devastating me. I didn't even consider the option of adoption. I don't know why, it just wasn't in my field, but I was ping-ponging back and forth. I can't do this and I can't do this. I want to do this and I want to do, I can't do, and it's paralyzing. So poor Ellen, right? So what I said to Ellen, she was basically saying to me, which one do you think is the right decision? Should I stay or should I go? And I said, neither, or both. And she was like, oh, Sarah, that is so not helpful. I need to make a decision. And what I said to her was, all I can offer you is a way to fully step back and see both of those Ellens and all the other ones that are there as well. And she just looked at me like, huh? What do you mean other ones? And I said, well, sweetie, I'm sure there's an Ellen that's in there that doesn't want either of those guys, right? I also bet there's an Ellen in there that knows she can figure out how to have both. Meaning what she's truly longing for from each of those relationships, she can access in herself or in other relationships or through those relationships over time. What I'm offering to Ellen, what I'm offering to you, is a way for you to get so objective that you actually make space for options you can never see before. When options get collapsed to either or, and there's only two, so you're only on 2 points in that 360 degrees of the circle, you're only going to ping pong. And if you look for perspective from another self inside the system, you're not going to have real objectivity, because selves inside the system of you all have an agenda. They all have a desire. They all have a longing. They all have a mission. They all have a purpose. Most of them are hell-bent to manifest it. And the only one that doesn't is what we're calling the witness in self-esteem. It's a self inside. It's a very special self inside that has sincere and pure objectivity, which means its only agenda is for the wholeness, the integration, the beauty of the system of you. So, the neuroscience now is showing us that our sense of self, our identity, is actually a misnomer. We feel, and I'll say it this way, Sarah feels like Sarah with all these desires. But truly, the Sarah that I identify as is just a bunch of disparate neural pathways firing like crazy. And I put them together, the brain puts them together, our neurophysiology puts them together in a way that makes us feel whole. That makes us feel like, okay, I'm Sarah, I know I got my shit together, I'm good. Whereas what I'm suggesting that we do is intentionally disrupt that sense of selfhood. Intentionally disrupt it by recognizing that that sense of selfhood is not the whole story. It's only partially true. And I liken it to the Copernican revolution, which was when Copernicus came along and said, hey, you guys, guess what? Guess what? The earth revolves around the sun, not vice versa. And people screamed and cried and they said, what are you talking about? Look, you jerk. I see the sun rising. I see it moving through the sky. I watch it every day. I watch it set. The sun is clearly revolving around us. And once we had the perspective that actually the earth is rotating on its axis, which we couldn't see because we were so in it, right? And that the earth is actually revolving around the sun, it wasn't until we got that perspective that we were able to actually know for certain, whoa, oh my God, our experience isn't telling us the truth. And actually, it is telling us the truth of our experience, I still have the sensation that the sun is rising and setting. What Copernicus said did not eliminate my experience or the validity of that. But what it did is it made a bigger field for experiencing the relationship between the earth and the sun. Similarly, our experience of Sarah-ness or Jim-ness or Christine-ness or Heidi-ness or Adele-ness, all of these experiences of our selfhood don't disappear. But with this broader view that we are actually a bunch of neural pathways, we're a bunch of desires, we're a disorganized, chaotic mess that our neurophysiology does a miraculous job in pulling together and pretending we're one whole human being. When we bring in that information, the whole game changes. And here's how. We get expansive. We get to see, yes, my friends, we get to see the dark side of us as well as the light side. And from this point of view of the witness, there's no judgment that dark is wrong or bad and light is good and beautiful. It's depth. It's breadth. It's variety. It's a palette of different hues and values to make art out of. You will never talk to an artist, a real artist, and them tell you they get rid of all the dark in their palette because it's bad. On the contrary, it's the relationship between the darks and the lights that create an aliveness in the artistry that an artist makes. And I'm suggesting you be the artist of yourself. Selfistry, the artistry of the self. So what we want to do is expand our experience of selfhood. And I'm suggesting that if you center, okay, I'm going to say that again. If you put your center of gravity into the witness self, not all the other selves that are fighting over, should I stay married? Should I not stay married? Should I have the kid? Should I not have the kid? Should I be a doctor? Should I be a lawyer? Should I go here? Should I go there? All of these different competing and conflicting desires, which you're not going to get rid of because that's sunrise and sunset. They're all still going to be there and they become the art that you're going to make of. But if you can pull your attention back far enough and put your rosy selves in the center, then this one becomes the artist, the choreographer, the elder, the wise one, the intuitive self, the still small voice, the one who loves unconditionally. If you center yourself in that one, then you don't have to fix this one, these ones. You get to make art out of them. Okay? Here's the thing. Now we're going to do a little meditation. When you're able to pull your attention into this witness self, this observer self, you relax. So what I said to Ellen, I said, sweetie, if you can come and just sit as the observer and not get pulled in, you'll relax. You'll find relief. You'll find clarity. All the things you're seeking as you're ping-ponging back and forth, you're not going to find inside the system. You have to step into the periphery. You have to get another perspective. You have to get the biggest perspective. And I kind of view it like, imagine you're at a party and there's hundreds of people in the room and you're those 100, there's like 100 Sarahs in the room, right? So there's 100, Sunnies in the room. There's 100 Beths in the room. There's 100 Judys in the room. And those are all different yous. There's a young you, an older you, all the different yous that I've been throwing out, and you'll figure out the specific configuration of yours. And imagine the witness you is like a camera on the ceiling, observing them all. You get great perspective. You're like the, what's it called? You're the spectator. So you're not, listen, that one isn't invested in any one of them winning or losing. It's really invested in artistry. That's its only agenda. So that one is relaxed, it's regulated, and it trusts in a bigger story. And that piece of trust, we're not going to get to today, That's the realm of source and sophistry, where we heal our relationship with the mystery or the divine, which allows our artistry to really come forward in full force. And many of you have experienced that already. But for today, let's just anchor in the possibility that there's a self inside that can get spacious enough so that I'm not contracted into the deeply, deeply anxiety-producing, stress-producing, depression-producing conflict between choices and decisions I have to make in my life. Okay, let me just scan my notes real quick. Go ahead, if you have any questions, you can, now would be a good time to type them in. Center of gravity. Okay. Let's do a little guided meditation to help you have an experience of this witness self. And in general, this witness self was cultivated through meditation practices and other mystical practices throughout history. And a lot of times the intention of this kind of meditation was to just escape and transcend and get out of the human experience. And what I'm suggesting in the Sophistry meditation practice is that we're seeking that perspective, not so that we can escape or transcend, but so that we can then use that perspective and its connection to source, our connection to source, to inform how we engage our human beingness and our a more integrated selfhood. So wherever you are right now, I'm going to just scan through questions. So wherever you are right now, I'm going to invite you to just stop what you're doing if you're multitasking at all and just close your eyes for a moment. And as you close your eyes, just don't do anything, but close your eyes and just think whatever you're thinking and feel whatever you're feeling and sense whatever you're sensing, and then just start to notice that. You know, like I notice my heart is racing a little because I get excited when I teach, and then my mind is, I have all these thoughts about, oh shit, you forgot to say that, and when are you going to say that, or that was really nice the way that came out. And so just feeling all that. My knee has been aching a little today, so I'm noticing that sensation. So this is the kind of meditation that's similar to Vipassana for those of you who have done that modality. So you just want to scan what's going on. And it's good to sit still and be quiet because it eliminates so many other things that pull our attention and distract us from actually observing our interior. And now I want you to take your attention and focus it on the center of your skull. It's where the pineal gland is. So by taking your attention and focusing it there, your thoughts will recede into the background because your attention is focused. So your thoughts move into your awareness, but they're not the object of your attention. Focusing the pineal gland, noticing thoughts in the periphery. Nice. And then go ahead and bring your attention into your chest, where your thymus gland is, where your heart is, where your lungs are. And connecting with the breath, the inhale and the exhale, let your attention be focused on the breath, centered in the heart. And then just notice how your feelings, your emotions are in the periphery. Excitement, fear, boredom, anxiety, depression. Just let them float around. And then take your attention and just drop it into your hara. into the base of your belly, into your perineum, into your testes or your ovaries, so the base of your pelvis. If you're sitting on a chair, just feeling yourself anchored in the chair, connected to the earth. If you're standing, you'll feel it through the bottom of your feet. Mm-hmm. And then as you inhale and you exhale, allow your attention to wander from the head to the heart to the hara, up and down in whatever timing is resonant with your breath. And continue to practice keeping your attention on the breath as your awareness expands to infinity. And all of your selves are floating out there like astronauts cut loose from their spaceship. See them, they're in the form of thoughts or shooting stars. They're in the form of feelings or sensations or memories or hopes or anything, everything. And you stay anchored in your breath. You're the observer. You're the witness. Centered, centered, centered. So bringing yourself back into the Zoom room, webinar room, that's just a taste of a very simple practice that you can do every day to begin to awaken this atrophied muscle. This muscle of this quality of self-awareness is not something that most of us were raised with. We're learning it as adults. And we're learning it as adults because it helps us choreograph our selfhood into a life that actually is meaningful and impactful. So this is one little thing that you can weave into your busy life, because if you do it every day for 5 minutes, it starts to strengthen. Now, what's super important with this is to remember that if you're doing any meditation out of context, without understanding what its intention is and how it will serve your sense of selfhood or your personal goals and aspirations, will continue to not yield the results that you want and or the results that it's intended for. So it's super important, whatever you're doing as far as spiritual practices, therapy, physical practices, medications, studying, all of these wonderful things that we bring into our lives to help us grow. It's important to understand them in a greater context of your development as a whole self. So this particular practice is specifically for growing the witness, which is the secret sauce in self-esteem, because it's the one where you get to relax, get centered, and get clarity around how to navigate your life. And Ellen will be able to see whether to stay in the marriage or whether to go as her next step. She won't necessarily have to have the final be-all and end-all and think, if I choose this, I'll never get this. If I choose this, I'll never get this. She'll see the whole field, and she'll be able to make the very next step for her, the right step for her. Okay. Any questions? Well, good to know you've all hung in here for this. Thank you. Only one person dropped out of all the attendees. No questions. Come on, you guys. Was I that clear? All right, let me just scan my notes and see if there's anything else that I would want to underscore. Yeah, obviously there's a lot more I want to say, but I hope that this kind of just gives you a flavor of what how self-esteem is orienting and supporting people in their personal development. There's lots of ways to explore your different selves. Great, Kathy, thank you. It's a great way to develop a better internal relationship, right? So there's lots of ways, once the witness really gets established, to cultivate a relationship with your own interior, right? Now, the reason we don't call the interior selves parts of us is because we really want to make sure we have an anchor in a center of gravity in the witness as a process, as a tool, and not to view the witness as a part of ourselves, because then we're lost in that same misconstrued selfhood. So the witness is really the anchor, the center of gravity, and it doesn't take long to develop her, and it just really makes life a lot more fun. And then you can develop your relationship with your different selves with much more spaciousness and curiosity. You're not shaming yourself. You're not criticizing yourself. You're not judging yourself. You're really making room for the full experience of yourself. And you can do that through journaling. You can do that through psychodrama. You can do that through therapy. You can do that through sacred theater. And in our self-esteem retreats and live experiences, we explore all these different dynamics. And the witness is really the pivot. So Michael's asking, are you encouraging the idea of leaving the body during the meditation? Explain more, the witness more, which you already are. Ha ha ha. Yeah, so that's a great question, Michael, because it is kind of like a shamanic move. You are leaving yourself, but you're not at the same time. Because if you're fully leaving yourself or dissociating or transcending, then you've disconnected from the selfhood that's needing your love and attention and care. So what we're doing is we're opening the field. We're taking this little box, of all of our different, rosiness and her multi-phrenic personality and her neuroses and her magnificence and all of it. And we're getting outside of it without leaving it. So it is like a shamanic move, and it does happen in our consciousness, but then we also take it out into the real world by using tools like psychodrama and constellation work and sacred theater and art and journaling and movement. So we bring our whole body into it, but we always have, it's like the witness becomes this little part of ourselves that then just hangs out with us, right? Forever. So at any moment when we're in an intense situation, we can just pause. Now Rosie's becoming the witness. She's not her anymore. She's the witness. I'm Sarah. So at any point where life gets really intense, I can shift my attention into my witness and pause and get curious and start looking around before I habitually act or react. This is the direct application of having a strong witness. Okay, thank you. Resonate with explanation. You're welcome. Nice to see you or feel you in the Zoom room. Okay, no other questions? All right, here we go. I want to invite you to play with me around this. So next opportunity is an online course beginning February 5th, where I will go into this even more. It's 5 weeks. And it's a video. I'll send you a video each week with the teaching that I create live. I create new ones each term. And then you come in for Q&A on Wednesdays, either at 11 a.m. Pacific or 6 p.m. Pacific. So for a live Q&A like this in a Zoom room where we actually see each other and we troubleshoot and really apply and practice questions like Michael's as they come in. So I want to invite you to consider enrolling in that course. And I did this other video called See Yourself and Love Yourself that I'm putting together in a sweet little package that I'm going to offer as a bonus, because it really gives you a flavor of the witness and how the witness can actually help you be, just a more beautifully and fuller expressed version of you, your best self. So I'm going to throw that in as a bonus for all of you who have joined me here today or who registered and are watching the video, and that bonus will be available to you between now and today's Wednesday, January 22nd. So Friday night, January 24th at midnight, those of you who register. The course is only $297. I do have some scholarship if that's an issue for you. And those of you who take the course, you can apply that $297 towards a retreat or one-on-one mentoring with me should you decide to go forward with the work. So I'm really, making it accessible in a way that works for you. This is the kind of work where relationship and mentorship and support is really important, really important. So that's what's next, is the online course or the retreat in Mexico in April. There are a few seats left in that retreat, though not many, and that's for women only. Sorry, Michael. But hopefully at some point down the road, we will open it up to men as well. And so enroll in the online course or come to Mexico and have 8 days of deep diving. And here's the thing, you could always reach out to me through my website. Just send me a note if you want to talk. Free consultations for a half hour, anytime, anytime. Yes, Michael is such a sweetie, Naomi. It's a different Michael, though. I know which Michael you're talking about. This is a different Michael who's also quite a dear. All right, my loves. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for giving me your attention. Always open to feedback and input. And I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming event. So reach out and let me know how you are and how I can support you in your artistry of yourself. All right. Lots of love. Thank you, Christine. Bye, everybody. Take care.